Hi, everyone. I'm Joshua Missouri, Director of Military and Veteran Services. It is my joy to be with you today to talk about veteran student success with my dear friends and colleagues, Mr. Chad Pettit and Mrs. Keisha Holman. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves and their functions in the university. So if we could at this time, Chad, how about you?
All right, yeah.
Tell
So
us
Chad
about
Pettit,
yourself.
sorry, Chad Pettit, Director of the University Writing and Learning Center. We just call it the LC or the Learning Center because saying University Writing and Learning Center 5 times fast is not fun. Um, Bachelor's degree here, master's degree here. Love this university. Always wanted to work here from one of the first times I took a class here. So I'm very excited to be a part of this university. And as a veteran, it's exciting for me to talk about the things related to veteran success.
Awesome. Thank you for being with us today. Keisha, how about you?
Keisha Holman, Director of Career and Professional Development. I have been with the institution for about a year and a half now, and my department is solely focused on achieving career success for our students. So whatever we can do to support students in their career endeavors is what we endeavor to do.
Awesome. So today, as we're talking about student veteran success, we're going to lean into some thoughts and ideas about what we can do to help motivate student veterans to be successful in their pursuit of higher education. Before we get started really into the meat of it, I want to learn a little bit more about you, your background, your path, and the work that you do daily. So if you could tell me where you're from.
So I'm born and raised in Oregon, very close to, my dad actually worked in the same town as the University of Oregon. So I'm a Ducks fan, very disappointed right now. Left Oregon when I was 18, 12 days after the Army, and went into the infantry, traveled around, stationed at Fort Hood twice, Louisiana, Korea, lived in North Carolina for a while. Definitely got to see some of the world, some better, some worse. So a couple combat tours. In '03, I was there about a month after the initial push into Iraq, and then I went back after it had been built up a little bit more. So after that, I bounced around quite a bit when I got out of the Army. I worked as a contractor on Fort Hood and for a couple jobs. So I worked on the ranges. I tested fuel for the military, and I worked as a machinist for the oil and gas industry. And I did that while I was working on my degree, and then I started teaching high school English, and now I'm here in higher ed.
Awesome. While you were in the military, did you have an opportunity to pursue higher education?
While I was in the military, I tried. So I was part of the eArmyU program, and that was not successful for me. So that was due to the fact that it was very early in the days of online learning. There was a learning curve. A lot of us were still figuring out how to do things. It's not like the days of, hey, I just call somebody and now I got Wi-Fi. It was very much like get a modem, or I had to go to the library or something like that. And then when I deployed, I wasn't able to complete my obligations. And so I completed a couple of classes while I was in the military, but I wasn't really successful until several years after I got out.
Okay. So as you transition from being in the military, tell me about your experience, because I know for myself, it was challenging for me to go from being a sailor to being this person who, in my mind, I was very driven. I'm not saying that I'm less driven now, but it was a different mindset. What was that like for you as you transitioned to pursuing education?
It was definitely a struggle. So when I got out of the military, I felt lost, almost like, when people come out of incarceration, how do you function? I bounced around jobs, and I didn't do a great job of setting myself up for success on the outside. I was infantry, and I didn't do a lot in terms of prepping for different jobs. And so it was kind of what's available to me with my skill set, and which is security if you're infantry. You can do other jobs, but I didn't know how to write a resume at the time, things like that. So I kind of fell into whatever jobs were available. And so when I started going back to school, initially it was, I've got to change my life. It was a pivot moment. It was one of those like do or die sort of situations. I can't keep going like this. I'm too young to feel this old sort of thing. So when I started going back to school full time, it was I'm all in. And then that came back. For the first time, I felt like I had that motivation when I was in the military. And I had that military mindset of I'm going to be on time. I'm going to organize, rationalize. I'm going to go through everything. I'm going to dissect and figure out everything I need to do after action reviews. That semester didn't go well. What can I do better? Every assignment I had that mentality. And I just kept projecting that across every time, every new semester, every assignment, so forth.
Did you did you come upon that for yourself? For me, I was kind of the odd person out. I was always, you could tell I was in the military when I was on campus because I was a little bit older than the rest of my classmates. I was a little bit more direct than most of my classmates. I used a lot of colorful language. I'm working on it still.
Sure.
But for you, did you come upon your need to make a change to the environment by yourself, or did you have people in your environment like mentors that helped you?
More myself, and I would definitely say that being being an NCO, non-commissioned officer, I had that we make the things run. We're the ones figuring things out. If something's broken, we'll figure out how to do it. And I definitely had that mentality of I have to do this by myself. But I would say it's more generational than it is the military. Raised in a family of men don't cry, men don't discuss their feelings. If you're not succeeding, then you're just a failure. Mm-hmm. And success is based on really no measurable metrics. It's either you feel like you're successful or you feel like a failure, right? And you can't really talk to anybody about it. And then on top of that, having PTSD, undiagnosed and not realizing it. So a lot of things were internalized. But I did get to a point where I started asking my professors for help. First time I got a paper kicked back, and the professor was very kind and said, you can rewrite this, but you need to figure it out. And really just gave me a few tips on feedback, really not a lot of help. And so then I had to really brush up my research skills and figure it out on my own. At the time where I wasn't here, I was in North Carolina. There weren't a lot of greater resources for students. And it was not a community built around veterans. Mm-hmm. And so if you said you were a veteran in that area, everybody just thought, oh, so you're probably shell-shocked. And they still talk that way.
Sure.
So it was very independent for the most part.
So as you worked while you were in college, what were the challenges you experienced?
Not being able to sleep was probably the biggest one. I worked as a machinist, which is very intensive work. It's not work where you can sit down and you can do some studying on the side. You're at a machine, you're monitoring things, you're loading metal, you're sharpening tools. You're constantly moving. And I operated 3 different machines, so it was back and forth. It's physically exhausting. I worked 12-hour shifts, and so for me, it was the lack of sleep really started to get to me. It started to affect me on a level that was probably really unhealthy. Mm-hmm. I started losing weight. Mm-hmm. My skin was very pale, and I'm a pale person, but it was like table white. Losing hair, vision was blurry, you name it. I started getting sick on a regular basis, and then I couldn't recover. So I was on average sleeping about an hour and a half a night.
Yeah.
I was taking English courses, so I'm reading a whole Shakespeare play and then writing the paper that night. And I'm hitting the 11:59 deadline right at 11:59. And it was to the point where I had to avoid taking showers before I studied because I'd get sleepy, all those sorts of things. And so I would say that's when my energy drink addiction started. Still in the struggles with that one. That was a big struggle, but then also the outside factors. When I told people I was getting an English degree, I worked in the CNC shop.
Sure, yeah.
And in that manufacturing mentality, a lot of people said, well, that's a waste of time. You're just going into debt for no reason. And, so it was, again, internalized things. And then I don't think people realize when you're working full-time. Well, I hear people realize, but when you're working full-time and you're going to school full-time, as a father and as a husband, the impact that has on your family. And so it affected everything. So when I finally graduated and I was able to sleep, I started gaining weight back, all sorts of things. And my sleep has never really got back all the way right. But again, part of that being not being diagnosed with PTSD and kind of just compiling on top of all that. So that's definitely something that I'm glad people are starting to have those conversations. We're starting to end the stigma of I don't need to ask for help, because asking for help is not weakness.
Right.
It's actually strength.
So is that something? So for me, I felt like I was always driven to not fail because of one, I didn't want to go back to my community. Two, I didn't want to consider myself a failure. And I think that perhaps drives me internally when I wake up in the morning. I want to make sure that I'm moving forward. Did you get that from the Army? Where did that come from for you?
I think the Army amplified it, but I really got that internally. My parents always said on a regular basis, we want you to be more successful than we are. And I think everybody in the Gen X generation probably had the boomer parents say that to them. We want you to be better than we were.
Yeah.
But again, that kind of created this erroneous sense of what success is, because that was to them money. Like, okay, we rented the whole time you were here. We want you to own a house. I'm like, okay, I own a house. Now what? Right? And it's so it came down to money. So if I didn't have a job that was making good money, or if I'm not able to pay for repairs on my car, suddenly I'm a failure. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was that. And the military success was based on the campaigns, right? So we have an operation. Was the operation a success? It's based on the objectives. And so learning how to apply objectives to success and define it that way, that was a big change for me. Okay. Because before it was just, am I successful? Well, I don't know. And then it turned into, I have these goals, and became more task-oriented. And for me, college is very task-oriented. I have this assignment. This paper needs to be done. Here are the steps I need to do to get to writing that paper. Here are the research, the thesis, the outlining, right? And it's following objectives. And then you get the grade. So after I get the grade, was I successful? And then it's reflecting. So the military kind of put some teeth to that sense of not wanting to be a failure, and it gave me more tangibles.
Okay. So what is student success for you?
Student success for me, I think it comes down to the individual, and I think that's where it needs to start. It needs to be helping a student understand, what is success for you? Why are you going to college? Are you going to college because someone said you should? What do you want to get out of it? Why are you here? What's your major? Why are you majoring in that? Really learning to ask that question, why and what? Why are you doing this? What do you want to get out of it? Once we do that, then it's figuring out what the resources are, what the available opportunities, steps you need to take. But it starts with, how do you define success? Because I think it's a major flaw of our society that success is monetary, that success is, well, I have a house and I have this and I have all that. Some of those things are not necessarily going to be in our control. If you live in a community where there's no available housing, you can't really use that as a success metric. But if it's, I want to get this degree because I'm that 72-year-old non-traditional student and I want to be the first person in my family to have a college degree and encourage my grandkids to do it, okay, that's success. That's success for you. But getting a job at 73 or 74 because you got your degree is probably not a priority for you.
Fair.
It's, my kids are now motivated. My grandkids are motivated. Okay, that's success. So it starts with the student and definitions.
Yeah. So in our community, oftentimes veterans have what I would consider an altruistic motive. They want to give back to their community. They want to serve their country and to make sure they're taking care of their families and communities. As a student veteran, you don't lose that drive. So how have student veterans been able to transition from college to giving back to their community?
Well, I would push back a little bit and say that, yes, some have that altruistic nature. Some are probably thinking more along the lines of career path, especially very young soldiers. They're thinking along career path. So I think it's, for them, it's later in life when they get to a point where they can help other people. And that's not to say, well, soldiers are selfish. That's not what I'm saying at all. But just that a lot of people are very career focused, and I don't think that's wrong. I think that's actually better. It's the lifeguard mentality. If you're drowning and I go to save you and I'm not protecting myself, then we both drown, right? So I think a lot of soldiers transitioning when they start going to college, it's Some of them are actually still active while they're working on it, and is great because that saves a ton of money for them. But a lot of them, when they're transitioning, from what I'm seeing, is it's such a different world, right? You're dealing with a civilian capacity with people who may have never served or who have been out of the military for a long time. They do not have the same mentality. They may not have the same sense of urgency. They may not have the same sense of order. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean they may have a different sense of order, a different way of organizing things, a different way of looking at things. So looking at things in terms of, I have multiple students to take care of and budgets and all those things, versus the soldier, I have an objective. This is what I'm supposed to do. I don't understand. You're the service is supposed to do your part. Why aren't you doing your part, right? And so it's adjusting to that civilian mentality, which can be very, very difficult. But for the soldiers who want to contribute and want to give back, I've always said our communities stay down because our best and brightest leave. And, when you're a kid, when you're a teenager, you're like, oh, I can't wait to get out of here. Can't wait to get out of here.
Yep.
But then later you realize, like, oh, you know what? It wasn't that bad. And no matter where you go, you're still going to have the bad things. Life is just life, right? Communities are communities, and communities are different, individual. But if our brightest people, if our most compassionate people, if our altruistic people leave and go to other communities, they go and they build up other communities. And I think it's understanding that who we serve in this community, really knowing the people, where they come from, why they joined the military in the first place. And if they're joining the military to get out of a certain lifestyle and then they can't transition effectively, they're going to go back to that same lifestyle. And so I think it's a matter of understanding there are people who are trying to get out of that so that they can uplift the community. So again, I go back to, I think people are focused more on themselves initially. And I think that's actually a positive thing.
Keisha, how have you defined success?
That is a great question. The answer is too long for the time that we have allotted here. So what I will say is that for me, success is about checklist.
Okay.
I am very task and goal oriented. And so if I can identify what needs to be done and complete that, that is success for me. And so that can be something as small as things around my house or things in the office or overall paying off this bill or, those kind of things. That's how I measure success. I've never had this global view of I will have this house and this car and that will then be success. That has never been my point of view. Earlier, Chad said that he didn't do a great job setting himself up for success. And I was curious to know for you, what would you have done differently to set yourself up for success? Because obviously making that statement implied that you had some idea of what success was at that point. So what would you have done differently to set yourself up?
Yeah, I definitely would have decided career alternatives. So when I initially joined the military, my plan was 4 years and then join the Oregon State Police because you either needed a bachelor's degree or 4 years of military experience. So my plan was always 4 years in the military, Oregon State Police. I ended up doing more than that. So I did 8, and then I was stop-lossed to go to Iraq. So I actually did almost 10, 2 months shy of 10 years. Because as I was getting out of the military, I got stop-loss and ended up doing another 15 months. And I went back to the original plan. So before I got out of the military, I went through the application process. I took the test, did really well on the test. I took the physical, did really well, failed the background check. We're not going to talk about that. So all of a sudden, I had no plan. And I think it really just goes to being young. You probably should not give an 18-year-old kid $12,000 as a signing bonus because all I have to show for that is absolutely nothing. I partied that money away. And then getting college credits was just college credits, but not thinking about what degree to get, not thinking about job opportunities. So I didn't think about any of those things. I had one plan. And even though I'd been raised my entire life, don't put all your eggs in one basket, I put them all in one basket, and that basket got smashed. So I definitely would have thought more about careers. And I think that would have, one, I would have set money aside. I would have planned alternatives, and I think that would have worked out better for me. So when I got out completely, it was, okay, go find a job. And I took the first one that took me.
So as you all have worked in student success and helped facilitate what students may define as success, what are some tools that you have used, you've seen students use to realize success for themselves?
Well, I'm going to defer to Keisha because I'm very new to student success.
Okay.
Okay. It varies. We are at an institution that has a very unique student population, I think, because a lot of our students are non-traditional. And so the services that they use vary just depending on their individual circumstances. And so I can speak best about the services that we offer in my department, career and professional development. I find that the majority of our veteran students have understood that they need help translating their military experience into that civilian parlance. Because when I look at a military student's resume and I'm seeing some of the verbiage and I'm like, I feel comfortable with a lot of it, but some of it I'm just, this has got to go. Like this, we need to put this in civilian in terms. And I find it interesting, having been around the military the majority of my life, a lot of things you don't even necessarily realize are military terms until you're outside of that environment. And then you say a word and people look at you and they're confused. And then you realize at that point that it is something military related and you don't know. And so I find a lot of students have identified that. And so they're coming in wanting assistance with helping to translate. I find that a lot of students have done a thing in the military. I don't know if you mentioned what your MOS was, but a lot of people don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but trying to figure out how to present themselves in such a way that is best suited to what it is that they now want to do versus what they've done in the past, and being able to highlight those transferable skills. And so we see that a lot. And I just want to encourage our veteran students to really think about all the things that they've done in the military and understand that they have gained so many skills that they probably don't even realize just from being in the military and what comes with it naturally in terms of the structure. And that those qualities are highly sought after by hiring managers. I hear it consistently. It's not, can you build this widget? It's, can you have a conversation? Can you self-motivate? Can you follow instructions? Those things that you can gain throughout any type of experience, but specifically as a soldier, you are tasked with certain things and you're given objectives, and so you go and you execute, right? That, like you talked about with the mission, the success of the mission is the thing. And so kind of helping students to realize that those are the things that hiring managers are really focused on, because they're finding, yes, I can train the person how to build the widget, but I can't train them to have that interpersonal skill that we need for them to be able to interact with our clients and things like that. And so wanting to build that up and just encourage them that they have gained so much through that experience that they may not even realize. But yeah, I think that I would say that the primary focus is that translation piece of, okay, we know we were in this world and now this world is completely different, and how do we navigate that? The interview process because a promotion board is not the same as an interview, right? Like, it's different, and it's a different preparation. It's a different approach. And so things like that.
Yeah, I think I can speak to the lack of confidence. And I think it comes down to the misconception that, well, you were military, so you must be critical thinking, independent. You've been told what to do and how to do it for your entire military career.
Fair.
You've been told what time to be to work, what you're wearing to work. You've been told how you can wear your hair, facial hair, or lack thereof. Now they can have facial hair. That's weird to me.
No.
I mean, everything. Your clothing was inspected. Your house was inspected. In Korea, I went off post to inspect the housing of my soldiers. That was a requirement to make sure they were living in safe conditions.
Okay.
And so you're told everything, right? Here's the mission. Here's the map. Here's where you're going to be at this time, right? And so now you're in a world where you're able to make your own decisions. And even though you have that skill set, you don't have the freedom, and you're not used to the freedom. So once you do have the freedom, now you're like, well, how do I apply it? And I know that was a struggle for me. It was, well, I don't have anywhere to be on this day. I can just do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to worry about filling out 11 forms to go out of the state to visit my mom or whatever. And so it's a lack of dependence. So yes, you are a dependable person, theoretically, when you come out of the military, but you're not a dependent person. And so that, I think, is one of the biggest transition pieces, is developing that ability to troubleshoot. The soldiers already have it, right? So anybody with combat experience knows, or not even combat experience, just training for combat, mm-hmm. You have your mission and you start exercising, you doing your part, and then everything goes south. And you have to think about it on the spot. Once the first rounds are fired, the mission's out the window. Like Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Fair.
Then you have to learn how to react. And soldiers know how to react. Sailors know how to react. Marines, military people know how to react, but they're at the same time waiting for orders. And they're thinking within the parameters of the objective. The civilian life doesn't have that same kind of setup. So it's transitioning the mentality and developing dependence before we can even define what success is.
I agree. It's definitely a combination, and specifically because of your experience, you said you joined right out of high school, and I find that is the case for those students who didn't have that civilian world experience after high school. They went straight into the military, and everything is, like you said, prescripted, and so there's so many things that they didn't know that there were decisions that needed to be made about, but yet and still, you gave a perfect example of skills that they attained, that they did that because they were told to do that, and they were trained that in a situation when the plan goes out the window, they are trained on how to address that, but they don't view that as a skill until it's brought to their attention. And so that's kind of what we like to do in our office.
Yeah, I think that's good, because some of these things are muscle memory, right? Like, we used to say it all the time. I say it to my soldiers when I was training them all the time. Train like you fight, and you'll fight like you trained. And your training will kick in. And the first time that actually happened to me, I was shocked. My kids will ask me questions like, Dad, did you ever this? And I'm like, first of all, you don't ask those kinds of questions. But the first time I was in one of those two-way range situations, mm-hmm. I was reacting before I even realized it, mm-hmm. because the training had kicked in. Mm-hmm. So now here I am in the military, or in the civilian world. That's not going to kick in, right? And so it's more of like tapping into that adaptability that you've learned more naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For the resource, for the programs that you direct, what have you seen student veterans use?
So tutoring, we have two aspects of tutoring available to students here at TAMUCT. We have the Tutoring and Learning Center, and then we have tutor.com, which is 24/7 on-demand tutoring. A lot of people out of convenience, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people out of convenience will go to tutor.com because it's right there in Canvas. You can just click on that button. It'll take you straight to it, and it's on demand. And then society has definitely worked its way towards face-to-face conversations are less pleasant. People are quicker to text,
Sure.
My son said his girlfriend just broke up with him over a text message. I'm like, come on, man, really? Text
Crushing.
messages? Why? So there's that lack of interaction. And once I tell people, or you can just email us, it's almost like, oh, shot myself on that one. Like, they're not going to come. No, they're going to it'll just be an email. But I've definitely seen some people use tutor.com and then to avoid that interaction. But then a lot of our veterans, especially the older generation, they're very quick to ask for help, which I think is great because we all know, men, we're not going to ask for directions, right? We're notorious for a walk around the store 500 times looking for this one thing instead of just asking where it is. Or if we do finally break down and go in and ask for directions, we're not really listening. Like, then you know where to go? Yeah, whatever. We just keep driving and stay lost anyway. And then we find it. See, I told you I knew where I was going. Yeah, we're 4 hours late. Great. So seeing older men come in and ask for help is great. I think we're breaking down some of those barriers, some of those walls, and I love seeing the stigma be destroyed.
Yeah.
So definitely they're coming in and they're asking for help, surprisingly, with things like, how do I get into Canvas? Mm-hmm. How do I use keyboard shortcuts I heard you say something about a shortcut on the keyboard. What is that? And like, they think I'm talking about some software or something like that. They don't mean I mean Control V, right? I showed somebody how to copy and paste.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to like buy me a Christmas present. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah. So we're helping people with those kinds of things. They can figure out the instructions on the assignment. They can figure out how to do the writing. They're struggling with the software. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one of the things I was surprised that we would spend more time on. So I made sure to add that to our services. We can help you with learning management systems, time organization, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think that's really important. One thing I noticed is, although I got an A in my Microsoft applications class back in the early thousands, stuff's different. Like, there's the crosswalk between different programs. Things that I didn't know were possible are actually facilitated in those applications. So when I left the military, I took in a significant break in my education experience. And there's a reason why I joined the military in the first place. I was scared to death of college. And so for me, I didn't want to take math. I waited until my senior year in college to take math. And I took it on Sunday because I was doing my absolute best to avoid this class. Are there particular subjects that you've seen that students are seeking assistance with?
Statistics.
Okay.
across the university.
Okay.
Statistics. Because that's layered. So you have statistics for psychology majors. You have statistics for political science. You have statistics for just math and business. So I think we have 3 or 4 different statistics courses here. And it's a different skill set. And it's not, oh, well, here are some numbers, put them in a spreadsheet. Oh, it's so much more complicated than that. And I remember taking political science statistics. I would rather take 4 writing intensive courses that keep me up all night than 1 statistics course, just to be honest with you. It's so different. And I'm good with writing, but like at a certain point, it's like, okay, I'm tired of typing. But the statistics courses, they're so challenging. And that has been a struggle. So I'm very excited that we have some people that are working in a learning center that have taken those courses. And we have some people, I just recently hired a tutor who does numbers for fun. That's how she relaxes at night. She does numbers. And I said, great, you're that person in school that we all hated because you were good at everything. You're hired, right? And so we're very excited to have her. But we get a lot of requests for help with statistics.
That's awesome. I'm just curious, do you have veterans or service members who happen to be peer leaders? If I'm using the term incorrectly, please correct me. And if you don't, that's cool. We'll cut that.
So in our student success program, we do have some peer mentors who are, and we have several student workers who are military.
Okay.
They're either prior military or they're currently military.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes, we definitely have that, which is great because leadership is definitely a part of the military experience. I mean, whether you like it or not, you're going to be in a leadership position of some kind. So we're pretty excited about that. We have one person who works in our testing center. We have one who's actually just transitioned to a more of a full-time role working in our Success Commons. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
I shared the story. It's an old story. It's been shared several times. There was a man who was diagnosed with a fatal, a terminal illness, and so he decided he was going to spend the last of his money and go on a cruise. That was his bucket list item. He wanted to go on a cruise, and so he did. And he only had enough for one of the small cabins, and he got enough food for himself to get through. And it was just like cheese and crackers, and he took his own water, not realizing that he had access through his ticket to all the food, the champagne, the balls, all the things.
Okay.
And so he'd squirrel away into his room and just eat his cheese and crackers. But he would go and he'd stare at the water, and that was about all he did, right? And then the crew finally noticed that he was slipping away, and they went to him and they said, "Sir, what have you been eating?" And they told him, and he said, it was like the night before the end of the cruise. And he said, "Sir, we're so sorry. You had all these services included in your ticket. You could have been eating all these things." So they like let him gorge himself that night, but he missed out on all that he could have gotten through it. And what I told those students is, you have paid for these services.
Yeah.
So please take advantage of them. Career and professional development services. You've paid for these services. You paid for tutoring. It's yours. Use it. Make us do our job.
That's amazing. I love that analogy. It's so accurate. Just from the perspective of, you don't have to be afraid of a particular subject. So it's great to have that person who can help you navigate that coursework and navigate college in general. So you don't have to figure out by yourself. I mean, we don't have to map our way in California. We figured that out already. And so since someone has already gotten those resources all together, we can utilize their experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's important, because one of the things that people talk about a lot, for me, definitely getting out of the military, I don't miss the sitting in the motor pool for hours. I don't miss the early mornings. I miss the camaraderie.
Yeah.
I miss the community. We have that. We have that community here. It's a different kind of community, but you are not alone. And I think getting out of the military can feel very isolating. And knowing that, hey, we have all these services available, and we have people who would just sit and talk to you. If that's what you need, if you need to schedule a tutoring session just to have a good cry, come on. I mean, I schedule it for myself. I think 12:30, I'm due a few tears. It's all right. You're not alone, I think, is the big message.
Yeah. Can you all share with me some resources that are available at the university for students to use?
There are a lot of resources available, a lot of programs. I'm very excited this is going to be upcoming, but system-wide across all Texas A&M systems, they're partnering for a pilot program with Grammarly, so more will be coming out about that. I'm pumped for that. But all students have these services available to them, and these are available in person and online. We definitely encourage students to come see us if they can. If they can't, we do have our services all available online as well, though. But we have success coaches. So if it's simply figuring out how to navigate college, we have planners that we can give students that'll help them their whole school year. They have in those planners lists of resources available. Like I said, we have tutoring services in a learning center for writing, for subject areas, for learning management. If you just need us to help you figure out how to do a presentation, or you just need to brainstorm with us, we can do that. If it's outside of our hours, we have tutor.com. We have peer mentors. Those are exactly what the title says. It's a student who's a mentor. They've been trained in how to walk people through things, and sometimes you just need a person there. Room 111, Warrior Hall, we have the Success Commons. It's just a place to come sit, and you can get supplies there. You can get a snack, a cup of coffee. You can get some highlighters and pens, whatever you need. In the Learning Center in 416 of Warrior Hall, we have some comfortable seating. You can come and just study there. It's a quiet place. But people aren't aware of all the services that we have, like outside of student affairs. The library has a wealth of resources, and they have a person designated to your particular major, and they can provide you with all sorts of resources. They can help you with your research. They can get you started, help you with keywords and understanding what is a Boolean operator and all those sorts of things. And then I'll let Keisha talk about CPD, because they have a lot of great tools.
Please.
So yes, we do. As I said off the top, whatever it is that you need in support of your career journey, that is what we do in career and professional development. But today, I want to talk about two very specific things. The first one, next month, February 19th, we have our Spring Career Readiness Conference. I'm super excited about it. Chad has graciously agreed to be a part of that. We're going to have several speakers and a panel, and it's going to be a great professional development opportunity that is open to faculty, staff, students, the entire community. We want everybody to be able to take advantage. And we have that virtual component to it. So if you aren't here in the local area, you can still participate in that event. And just in general, we try to make sure all of our activities have a virtual component so that we're able to make it available for our students who are at a distance. But the other thing that I'm super excited about is we have a new platform that we're bringing online soon. It's called Quincia. And so quiet as is kept, I don't know everything. And so that has been a struggle when students come to us and they want, hey, I have this engineering interview and I need to do a mock interview. And I'm like, great, let me find somebody to help you with that because I am not a subject matter expert. So I can Google great interview questions for an engineer, but being able to evaluate the response is something different. And so anytime we've had to do or we've been asked to do a mock interview, that has been a challenge, finding that subject matter expert to evaluate that portion of the process. So with this new platform, it utilizes the wonderful power of AI, not the evil one that's in the movies, but the wonderful power of AI to provide our students with the ability to do a virtual mock interview on whatever topic, whatever type of field that they're pursuing, and also tailor it specifically to them. So students will be able to upload their resume, and then the platform will incorporate the information that's on that resume. So if, for example, it may ask a specific question to the student, and the student provides the response. And then the AI will provide the feedback saying, okay, that was great, but you didn't mention your experience at this particular job, and that would have been helpful in that response. So giving very tailored, specific responses to the student and also industry specific. So in addition to that, it will also do resume reviews. So students can upload their resume and get feedback on formatting and things like that. And another notch, it also does LinkedIn review as well. So you can provide your LinkedIn URL and it will scan your LinkedIn profile and provide feedback on how to improve your LinkedIn profile as well. I don't want this to be viewed as an alternative to coming to see us. It is an added benefit. So, for example, specifically with the resume, you can upload your resume, get some general feedback on how it's presented, and then you can still request an appointment with us, and then we can have an actual more substantial conversation about what it is that you're trying to achieve or accomplish with that document, and not spend time on this comma should be here and this font and things like that. And so we're super excited to bring this online. It's going to be available to all of our current students. Some of the faculty members are going to be incorporating it as assignments in their courses. And so it's called Quincia. The AI they refer to as Quinn. And so we're happy to have Quinn on board this semester.
That's awesome. I like that.
It's super cool.
Yeah. You have any upcoming events?
I do. Okay. On January 29th, we're going to have a meet and greet, and we're going to also do a presentation, just a brief presentation of a few people from around student affairs. So I've invited Amanda Tuning to come and present career and professional development. We're going to have someone from access and accommodations, several people, just kind of very brief presentations, and then an informal meet and greet. And we're also going to have a Q&A, so students can ask questions, and then after that, we're going to have a giveaway. So it'll be a raffle, and that's available to the online students as well.
Okay. How do I get in this giveaway? Okay, we'll worry about that. Hey, thank you all so much for coming and sharing from your experiences and from your professionalism about student and veteran success. I know that people will get good information from this, and also they'll know where to go to get the resources. Joining me today and having a conversation about student veteran success. I'm so glad we were able to share out from ourselves to our community, and hopefully for the betterment for our veterans here on campus. So this time, if there's nothing else, that'll do it for the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.